parents and students. So this is our first video for the pre-algebra flipped classroom. And what I'm going to do to start is just review some of the policies as far as what is expected with the flip video with the parents at home. The students already were made aware of this today in school. So first of all, there will be a video once a week to start. There might possibly be a second video at a given time depending on what the topic is. And the students are expected to watch it at home. It will typically be pretty short, 10 minutes or less. And as they do it, they have 3 things that they need to follow. So the letter acronym that we use is WSQ, and we're calling it WISC just for the sake of the abbreviation. So the 3 steps whenever there's a video to be watched, students have to actually watch it. So that would be the W. As they watch it, they might possibly have guided notes to fill out, and they might want to write down questions or notes in their notebook so that they can keep up with the new concept. The second thing is summarize. A summary might take place just by a question that's asked. Students have to respond to it, so they're showing that they actually did watch the video. They might also have some questions that come up. I might have examples on the board that they're going to answer, and that would be considered a summary. We're not necessarily looking for a paragraph or written statements or anything like that. Lastly, question. Students need to jot down any questions of things they're still uncertain of so that when they come in the next day, they can talk about it within their group. They could talk about it with me. We can work one-on-one. Or they might want to write down a question related to the topic, so they may have their own question. For example, if we're talking about decimals, which is something we're doing right now in class, students might ask a question about a specific type of decimal. They might say, I understand that, Ms. Senka, when it's a decimal that ends, but what do I do in a case where there's repeating decimals? So that could be something that would come up and students would write down as a question. Those 3 things are expected. Watching it, I'm going to assume it's watched based on the summary and questions students might have the next day. By doing this at home, they're set up to jump right into activities for the next day. So I don't have to stand and necessarily talk about something for 10 or more minutes. They've already done it at home. So one concept that I do want to show students tonight is the idea of determining square roots that don't fall nicely in a spot. So an example of that is today in class we talked about perfect squares and perfect square roots. So we know, for example, 6 times 6 is 36. We also know that 7 times 7 is 49. In class today, we talked about what a radical symbol is, also known as a square root symbol. And that when we read the square root of a number, what we're really saying in our head is what number times itself gives me the value inside the radical. So if I had the square root of 36, I'm thinking what number times itself gives me 36? Well, we already answered that. The answer would be 6. So the square root of 36 is 6. Same thing with the square root of 49. What number times itself gives me 49? And we know that that would be 7. We can also have the opposite values of this, or the negatives. So -6 times -6 could also be 36. And -7 times -7 can also be 49. We're going to focus on the positives for this example right now.
Attention Falcon, Sean Birdlick, please come to the main office. Your ride is here.
Well, we know at least that this is really taking place in school. So square root of 36 is 6. Square root of 49 is 7. So now let's talk about the situations where we have a number that isn't perfect. So let's say that I wanted to figure out the square root of 40. first instinct is to jump and grab a calculator, but we can't use calculators in this unit. So we need to think logically. Where does 40 fall? Well, it's bigger than 36, but it's smaller than 49. So if I wanted to rewrite this, I may actually put it right here. So the square root of 40, I'm not going to know the exact answer, but since the square root of 36 is 6, and the square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 40 falls in between it, then the answer has to be between 6 and 7. We can go a little bit further with this. We know it's going to be a decimal, 6 point something. Which number is it closer to? Is it closer to 36? Or is it closer to 49? It's only 4 away from 36, but it's 9 away from 49. So I know that it's going to be between 6 and 7. It's going to be closer to 6. For the sake of what we're doing in class and what you're going to end up seeing through quizzes and outcomes, this is as far as you'll need to go. You don't need to know the exact value of the square root of 40. Now that you've seen that, let's try a few on our own. And again, we are only focusing on the positive values here. For tomorrow, when you come in, based on what you just saw, use your square root charts, use your knowledge of perfect squares. I want you to think about these three. Between which two whole numbers would the square root of 92 fall? And which whole number would it be closer to? How about the square root of 32? Which two whole numbers would that fall between? And which one would it be closer to? And lastly, the square root of 214. Which two whole numbers would the square root of 214 fall between? And which would it be closer to? Have those ready when you come in tomorrow. If you have any questions about how I set this up today, go ahead and write those down and feel free to ask tomorrow. All right, thank you.